By the time the survey crews, the county clerk, and 3 sheriff's cruisers rolled up beside the stone, "Welcome to Cedar Ridge Estates Monument," the HOA board looked like they were attending their own funeral procession. The sheriff rapped his pen against the engraved rock. "This," he asked, "this charming sign you're all so proud of?" Lydia Bramwell, HOA president and self-appointed neighborhood monarch, hugged her binder like it was a flotation device. "Yes, that sign was a $42,000 investment in our community image. Is there an issue?" The county clerk flipped through a thick binder, then glanced at me before raising her voice loud enough for every eavesdropping neighbor to hear. "As of 9:17 this morning," she declared, "that sign, the road beneath it, your clubhouse, your pool, and your entire common area are legally located on Mr. Walker's private property. He is the landlord. You are the tenants." 50 stunned faces swung toward me. I lifted a hand, coffee mug in the other. "Morning." Lydia jabbed a manicured nail in my direction. "This is absurd," she snapped, venom dripping from every syllable. "You can't just show up and claim you own our subdivision." "My name is Noah Walker," I said evenly. 2 months ago, I inherited 1,000 acres of ranch land outside Ashford, Texas. Your entire HOA sits in the middle of that land, and believe it or not, I've been very patient." One of the deputies spread a giant plat map across the hood of his cruiser. The thick red boundary line marking my property swallowed Cedar Ridge Estates whole. A kid behind us whispered, "Mom, are we on his farm?" His mother didn't answer. She was too busy watching Lydia's face twist as the realization hit. Her empire of mulch rules and mailbox inspections was built, legally speaking, on borrowed dirt that no longer wanted her, and we hadn't even started talking about eviction options yet. 2 months earlier, I thought I was inheriting cattle and headaches. I'd lived in the city my entire adult life. It guy, quiet, mildly allergic to people, very committed to minding my own business. My Uncle Hank, our family's resident eccentric rancher, passed away and left me his land. Just over 1,000 acres of scrub, pasture, creek, and whatever else rural Texas calls amenities. I drove out to Ashford expecting barns and broken fences. I did not expect to find a gated subdivision glued like a tumor to the center of the property. A stone sign declared, "Cedar Ridge Estates." Below it, an HOA community. Deed restricted. Luxury living. Past the gate stretched cul-de-sacs, beige McMansions, and a battalion of matching mailboxes. Everything screamed mandatory newsletter. I continued up the half-mile driveway to the ranch house on the hill where my uncle's lawyer was waiting with folders. "That subdivision," I said, pointing at the neat grid of rooftops below. "Is that on our land?" He smiled the way only someone whose billable hours were already paid for can smile. "Technically, yes. 25 years ago, developer made a sweetheart ground lease with your uncle. They didn't buy the land, they leased the right to build on it for 30 years with an option to renew. The HOA runs the neighborhood, but the soil beneath it still belonged to Hank. The renewal option expired last year. No one noticed because no one ever read the original documents except your uncle and me. So they think they own it?" I asked. "They own the houses and improvements," he said, "but not the dirt underneath. You inherited that along with the right to renegotiate, raise the ground rent, or terminate the lease entirely." He tapped the Cedar Ridge file, thick as a phone book. "Good news, your uncle never acted on it. Bad news, the HOA got very used to pretending they were sovereign." I looked down at the subdivision again. Tiny shining cars, immaculate lawns, and a woman in a golf cart taking photos of someone's driveway. "Let me guess," I said. "That's the president, Lydia Bramwell." He nodded. "She's enthusiastic." I didn't care about power. I didn't want conflict. My plan was simple. Move into the old ranch house, work remotely, fix fences, and let the HOA keep doing their thing as long as they paid a reasonable ground lease. Unfortunately, I made 2 critical mistakes. I decided to be friendly. Lydia decided I was prey. My introduction to Lydia wasn't a welcome basket or even a polite knock on my door. It was a bright yellow violation notice taped to my ranch gate. "Notice of violation, unapproved vehicle, Livestock trailer visible from community road. Grass bordering Cedar Ridge. Perimeter exceeds 4.5 inches. Unauthorized signage. No trespassing. Visible from community road. He read it 3 times, then stared at the barbed wire fence, the gravel ranch road, and the 1,000 acres behind it. Then I noticed the tiny handwritten note: please contact HOA President Lydia Bramwell to discuss compliance expectations. Else I called her. This is Noah Walker from the ranch house. A clipped, already annoyed voice answered. Yes. We've had multiple complaints from residents about the aesthetic condition of your property edges. My property edges, I repeated slowly. I own the land surrounding your subdivision. Yes, she said as though speaking to a toddler. But Cedar Ridge Estates is a deed-restricted community. Anything visible from our roads must meet our standards. Your standards don't apply to my ranch, I said. The no trespassing signs stay. So do the fences and the trailer. It's my land. That attitude, she replied, dripping condescension, is not very community-minded, and in that moment, I knew exactly who she was. Over the next few weeks, Lydia escalated like she was speedrunning every HOA horror story on the internet. She started sending letters claiming my cattle wandered too close to the walking trail and might emotionally distress joggers. She left voicemails demanding I mow the pasture along the subdivision fence weekly for visual harmony, she insisted. My early morning tractor work violated the community's quiet hours, as though the entire ranch existed merely as Cedar Ridge's backyard decor. I tried being civil. Lydia, I don't live in your HOA, I reminded her. You can't find me. I'm not under your covenants. You border us, she snapped. You affect property values. That makes you our problem. One afternoon, I discovered she'd held an HOA meeting where she labeled me the negligent landowner and encouraged residents to file nuisance complaints with the county. A copy of the meeting minutes somehow ended up in my mailbox. The pettiness would have been funny if I didn't also have, tucked inside my safe, a signed and recorded 30-year ground lease that had quietly expired while Lydia was busy measuring fence lines. It was my lawyer who finally said, Noah, she wants to treat you like a problem tenant. Fine, I replied. Then it's time to remind her who the actual landlord is. We didn't begin with bulldozers or sheriffs. We started with certified mail. Every homeowner in Cedar Ridge received a thick envelope one Tuesday. On the front, their name, their lot number, and my name listed as lesser. Inside was a copy of the original ground lease between my uncle and the developer, a letter from my attorney explaining that the 30-year term had fully expired, and a notice stating that, effective immediately, I was exercising my right as landowner to renegotiate or terminate their continued occupation of my land. We even included a FAQ sheet because I'm nice like that. No, you are not being evicted tomorrow. Yes, you still own your house. No, you do not own the land under it. Yes, the HOA knew about this. No, they did not tell you. We attached emails between the original board and the developer acknowledging the ground lease. The HOA Facebook group melted down within hours. Lydia's official message was peak HOA spin. A minor clerical issue has arisen regarding certain legacy documents. The board is handling it. Do not contact this Noah person or his attorney. All communication must go through me. So naturally, everyone forwarded the message to me. Some were confused, some furious, every single one suddenly very interested in the fine print Lydia had ignored for decades. And then Lydia made her fatal mistake. She tried to get me removed from my own land. I was checking fence lines along the perimeter one afternoon when a sheriff's cruiser pulled up next to my truck. The deputy leaned out. Afternoon. We got a call about a suspicious man with equipment on the Cedar Ridge Greenbelt. I pointed at the Walker Ranch private property sign 3 feet away. You mean this Greenbelt? He sighed. HOA president says Thisis a common area. I pulled out the plat map, my uncle's old survey stakes, and the ground lease. This, I said, tapping the map, is my land. Their Greenbelt is a ground lease over my pasture. The lease expired. They're month-to-month trespassers until they sign a new one. The deputy read the documents, then rubbed his forehead. You know we hate HOA drama, right? Believe me, I said. So do I. He made a call. 10 minutes later, he stepped out of the cruiser, walked up to the Cedar Ridge gate, and pressed the call button. Lydia's voice crackled through the speaker. Cedar Ridge Estates. This is President Bramwell. Ma'am, the deputy said firmly. You need to stop calling in trespass complaints on Mr. Walker. He is the legal landowner. That cannot be right, she snapped. Those surveys are outdated. The HOA maintains this land. We have rights. You do, he agreed. Lease rights which have lapsed. And he's here checking his fences, which you've been telling everyone aren't his. Silence. Then, well, we will see what the HOA's attorney has to say. You do that, ma'am, he said. In the meantime, stop abusing 911 for rancher versus HOA disputes. That is an order. When the gate swung shut, he turned back to me. Off the record, he said, if I were you, I'd get the county involved before this lady decides she's queen of the county road too. So we did. My lawyer filed official notice with the county clerk reaffirming my ownership of the underlying land. We requested the Planning Commission review Cedar Ridge's status as a gated community, given the expired lease covering their main entrance road. We sent a polite but firm letter to the HOA. Cease harassing the landowner, or we will begin termination proceedings on your ground rights. Lydia responded with a mass email accusing me of trying to steal our neighborhood. That email would later look spectacularly stupid, taped into an evidence packet. The power shift began at a mandatory HOA emergency meeting. They tried hosting it in the Cedar Ridge clubhouse, but half the residents demanded I be invited, and Lydia refused. So they compromised. Ashford Town Hall. I sat in the back next to a guy in a faded Astros cap who whispered, "So you're the land guy?" Apparently, I said. Lydia slammed a gavel like it owed her money. "We are under attack," she began, dripping theatrical outrage. "A distant relative of that old rancher is trying to extort our community." My lawyer rose, calm as a librarian. "Point of clarification. My client lives here now, and he's not trying to extort you. He's simply asking to be compensated after 30 years of below-market rent. Your board never adjusted." Murmurs rippled through the room. He placed a blown-up map on an easel. "This red outline is the Walker Ranch. This shaded section in the middle Cedar Ridge Estates. You own your structures. He owns the land. Your original ground lease expired. Legally, he could terminate the lease and force a buyout or relocation." Someone gasped. Someone else whispered, "Can he really do that?" "He could," the lawyer said. My lawyer continued, "He is not trying to extort anyone. Instead, he's offering 3 options. 1. A new ground lease at a modest rent per house, with clear terms and no surprises. 2. Individual buyouts of your lots at fair market land value, if you want to own the dirt under your homes. 3. If the HOA disbands and stops harassing him, he will grant permanent easements for access roads and utilities at a discounted rate." He paused. "What he will not do is keep subsidizing an HOA that pretends he's a problem tenant on his own land." Every head in the room turned toward Lydia. Her face froze into the expression of someone who just realized the boss she'd been trash-talking is standing right behind her. "This is outrageous," she sputtered with forced confidence. "He's holding us hostage." "Lydia," said a board member named Scott, choosing his words carefully, "did you know about the lease?" She hesitated. "It's historical paperwork. It's not relevant to daily operations." "So that's a yes," a woman in the front row shot back. "You knew." The guy next to me lifted his hand. "I've got a simple question," he said. "If we vote to disband the HOA, he gives us cheaper permanent rights to stay, use the roads, and never worry about mailbox paint again?" My lawyer nodded. "Correct. Within reason. He still has to comply with county codes, but he doesn't care about your patio furniture. Half the room lit up like Christmas morning. Absolutely not." Lydia snapped. "Without the HOA, this place will collapse into chaos. There will be inflatable Christmas decorations." "Yes," someone shouted from the back. "Like America." That cracked the dam wide open. People began unloading years of pent-up resentment, petty citations, fines for basketball hoops, for kids' bikes, for unapproved flowers. One woman held up an accordion file. I've paid over $4,000 in fines in 6 years because my husband works nights and sometimes forgets the trash can. Lydia, we're done. I stayed quiet, watching the board finally understand that the ground beneath their feet socially and literally belonged to someone who couldn't care less about their power games. By the end of the night, the board voted to hire independent counsel. Homeowners demanded a full accounting of why no one had been told about the lease. A petition started circulating. Recall HOA President Lydia Bramwell. The next morning, Lydia blasted a furious email accusing certain residents of siding with an outsider against community values. 3 people replied with animated popcorn GIFs. The spell was breaking. The climax wasn't dramatic screaming. Well, okay, there was some of that, but mostly it was bland, brutal paperwork. First, the County Planning Commission held a public hearing to determine whether Cedar Ridge's gate could remain on a privately owned road whose lease had expired. I showed up in jeans and a clean shirt. Lydia showed up in a blazer and pearls like she was giving a Fortune 500 earnings report. The county attorney laid out the facts. The entrance road, clubhouse, pool, and greenbelt were all on my land. The original deal listed them as leased improvements, with no renewal in place. The county couldn't treat them as permanently dedicated, public, or common use spaces. Translation: their fancy gate and exclusivity were dangling by a thread, and I was holding the scissors. We don't want to displace residents, the county chairwoman said, but we must ensure the land use is legal and clear. Mr. Walker, your proposal? I cleared my throat. I want to keep things simple. I'll grant permanent easements for the roads and utilities, and I'll lease the amenity parcels cheaply as long as Cedar Ridge stops trying to regulate land they don't own. That means no more HOA enforcement over my fences, cattle, equipment, or schedule. And the HOA leaders who filed bogus complaints need to go. They turned to Lydia. She launched into a speech about chaos, slippery slopes, and protecting values. It might have worked if 3 residents hadn't shown up with binders of their own. Inside were photos of Lydia peeking over fences, letters where she threatened enforcement action against backyard birthday parties, email chains where she acknowledged the ground lease and intentionally hid it because they'll freak out and it'll hurt home sales. That last one detonated like a grenade. The county chairwoman's face tightened. Mrs. Bramwell, did you knowingly withhold material land use information from homeowners? I'm not a lawyer, Ilya said stiffly. I assumed it was irrelevant since we maintain the area. Ma'am, the county attorney replied. That is not how property law works. By the end of the hearing, the commission voted unanimously to approve my easement plan, recommended that the HOA enter land use agreements with me in good faith, and forwarded homeowner complaints about non-disclosure to the State Real Estate Commission. 2 days later, Cedar Ridge held a special election. Lydia lost her presidency in a landslide, and then, in what can only be described as divine comedic timing, the new interim board president, a nurse named Janet, called me. We voted, she said. We want option 3. Kill the HOA. Give us easements. We'll manage the neighborhood ourselves. So we wrote it up. The HOA will be formally dissolved over the next 90 days. Their corporation wound down. Their bylaws went into a shredder. I purchased the clubhouse and pool structures from the defunct HOA for a token sum. It was either sell to me or pay to demolish them. Then I did the pettiest legal thing I've ever done. I reopened them as the Walker Ranch Community Center and public pool. Membership, $10 per month. Open to the whole county. Cedar Ridge residents got a discount, but they no longer controlled who used their pool. The first time Lydia saw a line of pickup trucks from outside the subdivision parked at her old clubhouse. Worth every meeting, every lawyer bill, every minute spent dealing with her nonsense. As for Lydia, the state real estate folks took a hard look at her non-disclosure mess. She wasn't a licensed agent, so their jurisdiction was limited, but the homeowners she misled had plenty. A group filed a civil complaint for breach of fiduciary duty as the HOA president. The settlement came quietly, $53,000, split among the plaintiffs for years of improper fines and withheld information. Lydia's face when the judgment was read shifted from red to white to a shade of purple didn't know humans could even produce. She stood there frozen, mouth opening and closing like a stunned fish, staring at the paper in her shaking hands, as if she could will the numbers to